We earn money, save money and buy things. Living beyond the economic cycle is impossible. What trends are dictated by world markets and how does it affect consumers? Watch it in People and Economy. In this episode, you will know what gasoline prices depend on, what alternative fuel sources are available in Kazakhstan, and why in Europe prices for fuels and lubricants are the highest in the world. Appetites of humankind towards natural resources are growing from year to year. The demand for carbon, gas and oil is increasing all over the world. Scientists are confident that this is a direct path to global ecological catastrophe and dramatic climate changes. 14 billion liters of oil, or 2 liters per person, are consumed on Earth daily. Many countries even now attempt to prevent the looming threat, and the reduction in use of traditional types of fuel is regarded as the best strategy.
Вопрос возобновляемой энергетики и энергоэффективности глобально стал вопросом не только экологии.
The issue of renewable energy sources and energy saving has become global not only in ecology but in competitive ability. All the world's major economies, including Western Europe, America and China, a neighbor of Kazakhstan, are developing their green technologies and renewable sources. For all that, prices for renewable power sources go down. This is a matter of choice not only for Kazakhstan. In fact, all the world thinks that environment protection is becoming the key part of any strategy and competitive ability.
Для Казахстана весь мир движется в том направлении, что озеленение становится ключевой частью любой стратегии конкурентоспособности.
Nowadays, more and more car owners reject petrol and opt for gas. It is both more environmentally friendly and 50% cheaper than traditional fuels. In Kazakhstan, for example, the average price of AI-95 gasoline is less than 200 tenge. The cost of methane is even lower.
По сравнению, я бы даже скажу, наверное, с 11, 12, 13 и 14.
In comparison with 2011-2014, the demand for gas increased by approximately 70%. Earlier, people did not know about that and used low-quality materials. At that time, it was quite new for Kazakhstan. In 2015, when the prices for oil products sharply rose, many car owners decided to install gas equipment. For comparison, earlier companies usually equipped 5 to 7 vehicles per month. In 2015, they had to install gas equipment on at least 30 cars. Nowadays, this figure is constantly growing.
Достигало, то есть минимум за месяц там 30 машин установок производилось.
Timur Kurbanov is one of those who help people of Kazakhstan to cut down their costs on motor fuel. He specializes on installation of compressed gas equipment. Before opening his service station, he was working at a steel plant and as an electrician. He also tried hand in restaurant business, but passion for cars, which he had in childhood, returned to him and played a very important role in his career.
Заниматься начал газобаллонным оборудованием я с 2011 года.
I began working with compressed gas equipment from 2011. I was gradually gaining experience and learned many new things. As time passed, I decided to open my own company where I could do what I like to do. And that proved to be a very prospective
Мне
business.
очень понравилось, поскольку оно очень перспективное.
Timur opened his company in 2015. During this time, he and his team re-equipped more than 800 vehicles. Most of customers came to him in winter period when it was necessary to warm up an engine. During cold seasons, Timur attended about 30 vehicles per month. In summer, the number of customers falls to 10 to 15 cars during the same period of time. The average price of installation varies between 150,000 and 200,000 tenge.
Оборудование работает, если его поставить действительно качественно. Оно работает очень долго, поэтому...
Dully installed equipment can work very long. Because of that, the payback process may take 1 or 2 years. For those who do not travel much, it may last 3 years. Still, this is a good perspective because fuel prices most probably will go up, but we shall be ready for that. For example, private taxi drivers compensate their costs within 3 or 4 months.
От 3 до 4 месяцев это максимально.
Compressed gas equipment allows to cut down car owners' expenditures by 50%. Among other advantages of gas fuel are environmental safety and increase of the traveling distance thanks to the additional fuel tank.
Некоторые люди думают, что автомобиль
Some people mistakenly believe that after the installation of compressed gas equipment, it will be impossible to charge their cars with gasoline. On the contrary, your car will be equipped with two systems. Both they will work without fail, and you will be able to use both petrol and gas. If you travel at a long distance, you can fill a full tank of gas and a full tank of petrol. For instance, when gas is over, the system will automatically switch to petrol, so you may continue driving on petrol.
газового бака.
Earlier gas equipment was not considered entirely safe. It was even compared with the delayed action bombs. However, thanks to new technologies as well as to enhanced quality and safety systems, this equipment does not pose any threat to car owners. More than 100 gas filling stations are expected to be opened in Kazakhstan in the nearest future. The number of gas-powered vehicles is to increase by 30%. Moreover, next year it is planned to start the production of new generation electric cars. For those who cannot afford themselves buying an electric car, there are many advices on how they can cut their costs on gasoline and therefore save the family budget. Experienced car owners recommend, first of all, to maintain your car in a proper manner. For instance, a contaminated filter can affect fuel consumption. Consideration should be also given to the selection of engine oil. The lower is its viscosity, the less often you will visit gasoline stations. The habit to drive with an unheated engine will increase gasoline consumption by 20% and intensively working conditioner by 10%. Bad weather also affects the appetite of the iron horse. Wet asphalt deteriorates the grip between tires and road. This in turn increases fuel consumption by 5%. In addition, the load level of the vehicle should be taken into account. Different types of tuning also make car owners visit gasoline stations more frequently. While service stations are being extensively re-equipped, almost 4 million vehicles with petrol and diesel engines travel along vast territories of Kazakhstan. Domestic drivers spend on average 15% of their salaries, or 5,000 tenge per week, on feeding of their iron horses. It should be noted that fuel prices are constantly increasing. But why does it happen? Prices are rising because gasoline in Kazakhstan is cheaper than in all nearby countries. Because of that, the neighbors buy up domestically produced fuel. To prevent it, major national companies have to raise prices, reducing the price gap. Export is also a very important factor. Thus, the revenue from oil sales to abroad countries play the pivotal role for the national budget and makes up about 30% of the country's GDP.
Три крупных оператора освобождены от внутреннего пополнения нефти.
Three major operators are exempted from inland deliveries and export 100% of their output. Thus, according to the statistics, they produce 80 million tons of oil and export 40 million tons. From these 40 million quasi-sector, Kazmunaygaz and private companies sail abroad 70% and leave 30%, or 12 million tons. At the same time, the demand for oil in Kazakhstan is 17 million tons. Therefore, we lack 5 million tons of oil. We buy these 5 million tons from Russia. The state made an attempt to increase the domestic consumption to 40%, but it was somewhat of a double-edged sword. Investors were reluctant to cooperate under such conditions, and even those who were developing their projects abandoned the market because instead of selling oil at a very cheap rate in the domestic market, it is much more profitable for all the investors to export it.
За копейки. Всем инвесторам выгодно продавать на экспорт.
Variation in prices in the fuel market affects not only car owners and budgets of oil exporting companies, but also prices of products made from oil. First of all, this is plastic and plastic products. Rising oil prices also lead to the increase in production costs of agricultural commodities. In fact, expenses for oils and lubricants are the main expenditure item in crop farming. As a result, changes in prices for flour, cereals, vegetable and other products can be observed in shops.
Каждый день кушаем хлеб.
We eat bread every day. We produce this bread in our country. Rising prices for oils and lubricants will inevitably lead to increase in the cost of grain. Why? Because it is gathered by a combined harvester and then delivered to the grain elevator by a truck. costs of flour milling plants should also be taken into account. As a consequence, all the logistical costs affect product prices.
Моментально начинается накладываться цена.
According to Global Petrol Prices Analytic Company, the average cost of gasoline in the world is $1.8. The highest prices for petrol, about €2 per liter, are in Europe. CIS countries, where petrol prices reach $1 per liter, are the second. The cheapest gasoline from 1 to 30 cents is in Venezuela, Saudi Arabia and Algeria. The more a nation uses alternative energy sources, the more competitive it is considered. Resource saving attracts investors' attention. More investment is made into green economy development. In Kazakhstan, they finance several projects. The investment amount exceeds $260 billion. Experts expect that after Exhibition Expo 2017, popularity of alternative energy will be only increasing. Countries are developing national programs and encourage their citizens to be more careful about resources. For example, the concept of transition to green technologies is currently being implemented in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is persistently developing a regulatory base for attracting investment into this sector. Several years ago, the country's green strategy was adopted. Kazakhstan's energy minister greatly supports this issue. That environment, tariffs, approach to investment risks and market that he created are adequate and, I would say, favorable for investment rising. Changes in attraction of projects that are going to take place in the upcoming 12 to 24 months will make Kazakhstan even more attractive for investment into the sector of renewable energy sources.
Я даже бы сказал, благоприятием для привлечения инвестиций.
Explored world oil reserves are estimated at almost 300 billion tons. According to specialists, it is enough for less than 60 years. Therefore, since recently, development of alternative fuel sources has become a critical issue. One of examples in Europe where it was decided to switch to alternative energy by means of raising prices for petrol and diesel. The average price of gasoline in the region exceeds €1. In Norway, it costs almost €2. This is the highest fuel price in the world, despite the fact that the country is considered one of the world's major oil exporters.
В Европе идет другая политика. Почему все время они поднимают цены на нефть? Потому что
Europe has a different policy. They constantly raise prices for oil, or in other words, oils and lubricants, in attempts to encourage people to use alternative energy sources, in particular electric cars. For example, in Norway, much preference is given to electric vehicles. Even in case of a road accident, that a driver of a petrol-powered car is automatically found guilty.
На бензине и автомобиле на электричестве столкнулся, автоматически виноватым становится на бензине.
Currently, Norwegian authorities are discussing the issue of abandoning petrol and diesel by 2025 and prompt people to switch to environmentally friendly transport. Nowadays, such vehicles make up approximately 25% of the country's car fleet. To encourage more people to buy electromobiles, local car makers are hard at work on developing of new models at an average price. The Norwegian experience was studied in Holland, which now also intends to ban registering gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles by 2025. At this moment, their proportion is less than 15%. Germany also follows example of its neighbors. In the period of 14 years, German authorities plan to make people use hybrid or electric transport and reduce polluting emissions by 90%. It is expected that as soon as within 3 years, 500,000 of electric cars will be traveling along the country's roads. For reference, now their number nears to 25,000. The motor vehicle pool China is growing from year to year. The ecological situation is also deteriorating. Therefore, it is no surprise that China, like European countries, is holding a course on automobiles of the future. In the nearest 5 years, the fleet of business motor cars is expected to consist of electric vehicles by 50%. Last year, the global demand for electric cars increased by 60%. China and the US are the major markets, with 650,000 and 560,000 of such vehicles correspondingly. They are followed by Japan with more than 120 electromobiles. The total number of battery-powered cars in Europe exceeds 250,000. In total, more than 2 million electric cars were sold around the world since the sales start 9 years ago. Experts predict that under the present circumstances, about 20 million environmentally friendly automobiles will be sold around the world by 2020. body parts, houses, and now even an electric vehicle. An American company presented an electric bus. Its details were made by a 3D printer. This unique transport is not only environmentally friendly, but also equipped at a state-of-the-art level. Thus, for instance, passengers can call the bus by means of a special application in their smartphones. In addition, details for the vehicle can be printed just within 10 hours. One more hour is required to assemble it.